Amphibia is a good show that is only getting better as it goes along. The more I see our central trio interact, and the more information we get about them, the more confident I become in the future of the show. I have nothing against the Plantars. They are fun characters, especially Hop Pop, who's basically the Grunkle Stan of this show. Not only because he's a fun old dude with questionable moral codes, but also because his curmudgeonly appearance is just a facade, and in reality he's conducting a lot of strange and esoteric investigations. Nonetheless, throughout my viewing experience of the show thus far, I've been less consistently invested in the stories of the Plantars when compared to our central trio of Anne, Sasha, and Marcy. Anne was the cautious one of the group. Marcy was the intellectual one. Sasha was the brave, albeit stubborn one. When they separated, they each went and formed their own distinct lives in Amphibia. Anne became friends with the Plantars, a group of hard-working, if not extraordinarily powerful, ordinary frogs. But it is Sasha and Marcy who have really thrived in this world. Back on Earth, Marcy was clumsy, she was awkward, she was kind of the weird one. Anne always had to look out for her. Here, Marcy is a fearsome warrior, her physical prowess maxed only by her celerity of mind. True, she has not entirely outgrown her klutzy tendencies, as demonstrated in the first episode in which we see her again, Marcy at the Gates, in which her cape catches on fire multiple times and Anne always has to be the one to stamp out that fire. It seems like Marcy could have saved herself a lot of trouble if she had taken advice from Edna from The Incredibles and not worn a cape. Nonetheless, Marcy is very much valued by the Queen and King of Newtopia. She has special value in this city because she has a reputation for being able to defend the city against invaders. In short, she gets to be the hero of the fantasy game she always used to play, and she couldn't be happier. Her life is prosperous now. The same, honestly, can be said of Sasha to an extent. While Sasha enjoyed a relatively luxurious life on Earth, her station was nonetheless significantly lower than it is in Amphibia. She has become a prized and valorized warrior. She's the second most important person we see in the Toad Army after Grime. And unlike Grime, who descends into depression and languor after the end of Season 1, watching bad TV and eating junk food, Sasha trains. She dedicates herself to refining her skills as a warrior. And she also remains mentally sharp. Her persuasion skills helped her ascend the Toad ranks. And I really do like how her advancement wasn't just a byproduct of cruelty and manipulation. She finds that it's much more effective to build up those she wants to persuade using kind words and compliments. The one time she relies on threats in her relationship with Anne, it eventually backfires, with Anne escaping from her influence and turning against her at the end of Season 1. So we have three separate friends who have each made distinctive lives for themselves in this strange, slimy world. While Anne is the main character, the show really demonstrates its intelligently wide-ranging perspective by focusing on the struggles and torments and challenges of each of our three most important characters. Anne appears to be the glue that holds the trio together, and it is quite significant that even after nearly dying in a sword fight with Sasha, she still wants to rescue Sasha. She still wants to be there for Sasha. Anne still wants the three of them to return home together. Nonetheless, I really cannot say she's that much more important to the overall plan of the series compared to the other two. Amphibia is thankfully not one of those works that, in theory, emphasizes the equality of the members of the group, but in reality favors one member, the lead character, over the others. Marcy, Anne, and Sasha are each fully formed characters with their own perspectives and desires. And they're a nice play on wish fulfillment, too. Amphibia plays a lot with its genre, that genre being low fantasy or portal fantasy, or whatever else you want to call it. The basic premise being that there is our world, and then you can enter a gate or a portal and end up in another world. There tend to be two distinct kinds of messages works like this promote about the relationship between our world and the fantastical world. The first is that escaping the ordinary, banal, mundane world and reveling in the fantasy world is good, and something we should seek to do. This is the wish fulfillment narrative. The most obvious example of this kind of low fantasy I can think of is the Harry Potter series. Initially, Harry Potter is trapped in a cupboard closet and raised by an abusive family, but then he finds his way into a world of magic and mystery and wonder. In this world, he makes friends and embarks on adventures, and he's someone very important. In fact, he is considered to be the chosen one. The other kind of message that stories like this can send is that whatever charms there may be in the fantasy world, we should seek to return to our own worlds. The first couple things that come to mind when I think of this type of story are The Wizard of Oz or the first season of Digimon. Whatever friends you may make in the fantastical world, and whatever adventures you may have, the fantastical world is nonetheless scarier and less comfortable and less conducive to good living than the familiar world. Amphibia takes an interesting perspective as it really drills into how going into a fantasy world can help some people much more than it helps others, and there are conflicts that arise from that. I'm very interested to see if the show digs more into that dynamic as it progresses. It's potentially very interesting. Anne wants to return to her own world. There are people who really love her there, including her mother. Perhaps that's not quite as true for the other two members of Anne's little trio. Would Marcy, someone who is just a clumsy dork back home, really want to return to Earth? Now, she says she does, but would you really blame Marcy for having other plans? I wouldn't. The same could possibly be said of Sasha, especially if she did not have the best relationship with her parents, as is a reasonable speculation, I believe, considering her manipulative behavior throughout the series. The magical world of Amphibia is better in a lot of ways in comparison with the world that they knew. And it is a very beautiful world. That is something I highly appreciate about this show's craft. While the world of Amphibia is, in one sense, a world we can recognize as a variation of our own, as it is based on estuaries and swamps, places where amphibians do tend to live, it's also uniquely its own thing. It's a unique, fantastical vision. It creates the feeling of being lost in a vast, wide wilderness, a place with no clear-cut similarities to home. My favorite film that creates that kind of unsettled feeling by placing characters in a vast, destabilizing, unfamiliar world is Aguirre, The Wrath of God, in which European colonizers in South America find themselves adrift, looking for a city that does not exist, lost in their own arrogance and their own pretensions. The world they travel through is thus nightmarish and alien. It's a place they are very much isolated from. Matt Braley and his team of storyboard artists and animators don't quite make the world of Amphibia that haunting and terrifying, and there's a lot of fun exploration to be had in this world, but it's nonetheless a world that can be eerie and spectral even in its beauty. When Anne is terrified upon arriving here, it's not hard to understand why. It's not just that she's far from home, far from the world she knows. It's that this world is so different from that world that she knows that Anne has no choice but to adapt to a new manner of living. We pay attention to the plots and characters of animated TV shows, and rightly so, but this is still primarily a visual medium, so paying attention to all the hard work and dedication poured into creating the specific atmosphere of this world is something we should very much do, as it's something this show excels at. That this world is so strange and eerie, even in its wonder and beauty, really adds to the surprise and ultimately the satisfaction of Anne and especially Marcy and Sasha really thriving in this world. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Amphibia. It's a really smart and clever show, and I can't wait to see what it does next. There are a lot of really interesting character dynamics going on, and I want to see what they do with them. If you want me to do more analyses of Amphibia, just comment below and say so. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. Will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.